It was our spot, tucked in the corner of that cozy little cafe, where the smell of cinnamon clung to the air and the waitress knew our names. Claire and I had met there every week for years. No matter what was going on, we always made time. So I ordered her usual too, just in case she showed up late. Then my phone buzzed. Caught up with work? Rain check? That was it. No smiley face. No, I'll make it up to you. Just cold. Distant. Something felt off, but I shrugged it away. She was probably just stressed. We all get busy, right? Later that day, I grabbed Ethan's tablet to finally buy that vintage cookbook I'd been eyeing for weeks. He'd left it on the couch, open. I wasn't snooping. I had no reason to. But as I was typing in the search bar, a message popped up. Claire's name. I didn't mean to click it. It just happened. And what I saw made my stomach turn. Flirty messages, emoji-filled innuendos, and then the photo. Her. Like that. Sent to him. My hands went numb. I wanted to unsee it, to rewind time, to tell myself it was some kind of twisted prank. But I couldn't. I sat there, the tablet still glowing in my lap, as everything I knew started to crumble. My best friend. My boyfriend. The two people I trusted most. And they were doing this behind my back. I didn't scream. I didn't throw anything. I just cried. The quiet kind of crying, the kind that makes you feel like you're disappearing. But when the sun rose the next morning, something in me had shifted. I looked at my reflection, puffy eyes and all, and I knew what I had to do. They had broken something in me, but they had no idea what I was about to rebuild in return. You know what's strange? The hardest part wasn't the betrayal itself. It was the silence that came after. The way I sat at the edge of my bed, wrapped in a blanket that still smelled like him, wondering how long it had been going on. Was it one night? A month? Did they laugh about me when I wasn't around? Every memory twisted into something ugly. Our late-night talks, the sleepovers with Claire, the times I'd gush about Ethan while she smiled and nodded. God, she must have been smiling for all the wrong reasons. I thought about texting her. I thought about texting him, just to say, I know. But something held me back. Pride, maybe, or clarity. The kind that comes when you're finally too hurt to keep begging for answers. Because deep down, I already knew the truth. They didn't make a mistake. They made a choice. And now, it was my turn. I wasn't going to be the sad, broken woman in their story. I was going to rewrite it, my way. I got out of bed, washed my face, and made a cup of coffee with hands that barely stopped shaking. The smell grounded me. Bitter, familiar. And as I sipped it, an idea began to form. Sharp, quiet, and cold. Not the kind of revenge that screams, the kind that smiles. I wouldn't confront them, not yet. Let them stay comfortable in their little secret. Let them believe I was still in the dark. Because something was shifting in me. Something dangerous. Something powerful. And I knew just where I'd start. I started watching them, not in a creepy, obsessive way, more like observing, listening. Ethan would come home, kiss me on the forehead like nothing had changed, toss his keys on the table, ask about dinner. Claire still texted sometimes, asking if I wanted to catch up, like nothing had happened. It made my skin crawl. But I smiled, played along. I answered just enough to keep up the illusion. They had no idea I was already 3 steps ahead of them. The thing is, I didn't want to just hurt them. I wanted them to feel it, the way I had. I wanted the lie to explode right in front of them. Not in anger, but in elegance. No shouting, no ugly scenes. Just the kind of blow that lands with a smile. And for that, I needed patience, timing, and someone who could help me stir the pot. Someone close enough to make it personal. That's when I remembered Julian. Ethan's younger brother, the golden child, quiet, kind, charming in that effortless way that made people lean in when he spoke. We'd always gotten along, but I never gave it much thought. Until now. I hadn't seen him in ages. But maybe that was about to change. I picked up my phone, opened my calendar, and smiled to myself. There was a gallery opening this weekend, the kind of place Julian used to love. Maybe I just happened to be there too. The gallery buzzed with soft music and polite laughter, the kind of elegant noise that never quite fills the space. I walked slowly, letting my heels click against the floor, every step deliberate. My heart wasn't in the art, not really. I was scanning faces, feigning interest in abstract brushstrokes and overpriced sculptures. And then, there he was, Julian. Standing near a painting like he belonged in the frame, hands in his pockets, head tilted, quietly lost in thought. He hadn't changed much, still had that warm, effortless charm that made you forget to breathe for a second. He noticed me before I could pretend to notice him. "Lena?" he said, like a surprise wrapped in nostalgia. I turned, let the smile bloom slowly, the kind that says this is unexpected, even when it's anything but. We hugged briefly, his scent oddly comforting, like cedarwood and memories. He looked good, better than I remembered, and in that moment, I realized something. I wasn't acting, not completely. There was a part of me, a very real part, that was glad to see him. We walked through the gallery together, shoulder to shoulder, talking about art, life, and everything we hadn't said in years. I laughed too easily, he smiled too much, and there was a flicker in his eyes, something tender, maybe even hopeful. I let my hand brush his once, as if by accident. He didn't pull away. If anything, he lingered. And I thought, this might be easier than I expected. But under the charm, under the warmth, I stayed sharp. This wasn't just a reunion, it was a step, one he didn't even know he was taking. Julian started texting me the next day. Just little things at first. A photo of a painting that reminded him of our night. A quote from a book he said I'd love. And I answered, of course. I kept it light, playful. But something about the way he wrote, the way he saw me, was different. There were no games, no hidden tones. He made me feel seen, really seen, in a way Ethan never bothered to. And for a moment, I forgot I was supposed to be playing a part. We met for coffee the following week, then lunch, then late-night walks. Each time felt easier, more natural. I started dressing for him, soft fabrics, warm tones, a touch of perfume I knew lingered in hugs. He always noticed. He always looked at me like I was something rare. And maybe I started looking at him the same way. There were moments when I'd catch myself laughing, really laughing, and wonder if I was slipping. If this revenge story was turning into something else entirely. But I didn't forget. Not for a second. Every smile, every lingering glance, I still knew why I was doing this. It was part of the plan. And yet, the plan had never included this ache I felt when I said goodbye to Julian each night, or the flutter in my chest when he texted, "Made me think of you." I'd set this in motion with ice in my veins, but somehow warmth had found its way in, and that terrified me more than anything. One night, we ended up at his place. Nothing planned, nothing forced. Just 2 glasses of wine, a shared playlist, and the soft comfort of the couch between us. He told me stories from his childhood, the ones Ethan never shared, how their father was hard on them, how Julian always felt like he was living in his brother's shadow. Maybe that's why I never said anything before, he admitted, looking at me like he was letting go of a weight. I thought you were always meant for him. My heart twisted. I wanted to tell him how wrong he was. Instead, I leaned in, not because I was acting, Not because it was part of some scheme, but because I wanted to. And when our lips met, it wasn't calculated. It was soft, tentative, like we were both testing the edges of something fragile. It didn't feel like revenge in that moment. It felt like surrender. And when I laid my head on his chest afterward, listening to the steady rhythm of his heart, I knew I was in trouble. Deep trouble. But I didn't stop. I couldn't. Julian was everything Ethan wasn't. Thoughtful, honest, present. He looked at me like I was the only woman in the world. And for once, I let myself believe it. Still, late at night, when I was alone again, I'd stare at my reflection and whisper, "Don't forget." Because no matter how sweet Julian tasted, the bitterness of betrayal still lingered. And soon, everything would come to light, on a night they'd never forget. Julian had this way of making everything feel easy, effortless. The kind of man who opens the car door without making it a show, who remembers your favorite wine, who actually listens. We fell into rhythm quickly. Weekend trips, late-night takeout, quiet mornings tangled in sheets and sunlight. I knew I was supposed to be cautious, to keep my walls up. But they crumbled, piece by piece, every time he looked at me like I was worth the wait. And maybe I started believing him. We spent a weekend in the mountains, just the two of us. No distractions, no timelines, just fresh air and soft laughter. That last night he made dinner at the cabin. Candles, music, everything warm and intimate. I didn't suspect a thing. Not until he reached into his pocket with that shaky breath and pulled out a velvet box. My heart stopped. "Lena," he said, voice thick, eyes bright. "I don't want to imagine life without you. Will you marry me?" For a second, the world fell completely silent. I should have said no, or at least hesitated longer. But in that moment, I didn't see Ethan. I didn't see Claire. I saw Julian, real, open, waiting. Then, like lightning, it all rushed back. The photo, the betrayal, the silence that followed. I looked him in the eye and said yes, not out of pity, not out of guilt, but because this was the moment, the one I'd been building toward, and the timing couldn't be more perfect. Julian kissed me like he'd just won the lottery, like I was some rare gift he never expected to hold. And for a moment, I let myself melt into it, into the way his hands trembled slightly as he held my face, into the quiet gasp he made when I said yes. It was pure. It was honest. And it wasn't his fault that my heart was still carrying scars he didn't put there. But as he held me close that night, his breath warm against my skin, I couldn't help but feel it. That sharp edge inside me. The one that hadn't dulled. Not yet. A few days later, his parents invited us to a family dinner. A small celebration. Casual. Just the family. I knew what that meant. Ethan would be there. Claire, too, probably clinging to some desperate excuse for proximity. "She's still friends with the family," Julian had said once, not realizing how those words burned. But I smiled and said yes, because of course I did. It was almost poetic, really. The timing, the symmetry. The trap was setting itself. The night before the dinner, I stood in front of the mirror, staring at the ring on my finger. It sparkled, a soft, romantic stone, probably chosen with care. It wasn't just a symbol of love. For me, it was armor, a statement, a reckoning. I practiced my smile, the one that would disarm and devastate. The one that would look Claire dead in the eye and ask nothing out loud, but say everything she needed to hear. I wasn't nervous. I was ready. I chose my dress carefully. Soft cream silk, simple but striking. Not loud, not flashy. Just enough to say, "I belong here, and I'm not the woman you left behind." As Julian drove us to his parents' house, he held my hand the whole way, occasionally bringing it to his lips, his thumb grazing the ring like it was some sacred token. I smiled at him, because he deserved that. The warmth, the sweetness. He was a good man. Maybe too good for a night like this. We pulled up to the familiar house, the one I'd visited countless times back when I was still Ethan's girl. The air smelled the same: cut grass, barbecue smoke, jasmine somewhere nearby. But everything else had changed. I walked in on Julian's arm, and every head turned. His mother's eyes lit up. His father offered a surprised but approving nod. And then, like clockwork, Ethan appeared from the kitchen, wineglass in hand, and Claire, right behind him. She froze when she saw me. That was the first victory. Dinner was a blur of clinking glasses and fake laughter. Claire barely touched her food. Ethan kept sneaking glances like he couldn't quite believe what he was seeing. I stayed close to Julian, leaned into his shoulder, laughed at his jokes. Every gesture was real, but also chosen. Carefully, deliberately. Because I wasn't here just to celebrate. I was here to deliver. And when Julian stood up to make a toast, I already knew exactly what was coming. Julian stood, clearing his throat gently, and everyone at the table turned toward him. His mother smiled instinctively. She adored her boys. Ethan leaned back, arms crossed, probably expecting a story about their childhood or some harmless toast about family. Claire kept her eyes low, her fork scraping at untouched potatoes. And me? I kept my face soft, almost shy, as if I didn't know what was coming. But inside, my heart was pounding like a drum. Not from nerves, from satisfaction. I just want to say, Julian began, his voice steady, that I'm happier than I've ever been. He looked down at me, his fingers brushing mine. And I want you all to know, Lena and I are engaged. Gasps echoed like a ripple. His mom clapped her hands together. His dad raised his eyebrows. But I didn't look at them. I looked directly at Ethan, and the color drained from his face so fast I thought he might actually pass out. Claire's fork slipped from her fingers and clattered onto her plate. I slowly lifted my hand, letting the ring catch the warm light like a weapon polished to perfection. "Surprise," I said with a small, sweet smile. "The kind you give when you've already won." Ethan opened his mouth, then shut it. Claire stood up abruptly, muttering something about the bathroom. I didn't stop her. I just watched her leave, her heels clicking too fast across the tile. Ethan started to rise too, but not before I gave him the finishing touch. I turned toward him, eyes steady, and said, "Funny how life works. I lost a boyfriend and a best friend, but gained something much better." The room was so quiet, you could hear the fireplace crackle behind us. Julian was still smiling, completely unaware of the slow-motion explosion he'd just triggered. His arm stayed around me, proud and protective, while Ethan stood frozen, holding that stupid wine glass like it was anchoring him to reality. His jaw was tight. His eyes flicked from my face to the ring and back again, trying to solve a puzzle that was already finished. Part of me wondered if he'd say something, if he'd try to stop this somehow. But he didn't. He couldn't. Claire hadn't returned. No surprise there. She was probably in the bathroom trying not to vomit, or cry. Maybe both. I imagined her staring at herself in the mirror, wondering how the girl she used to pity had just walked into her world and turned it inside out. I pictured her hands shaking, her mascara smudged, her breath shallow. That's the thing about betrayal. It comes back for you eventually. Not in screams, not in chaos. In silence. In rings. In carefully planned dinner tables. Julian raised his glass, so sweetly, so innocently. "To love," he said, and everyone echoed it. I clinked glasses, my hand steady. Ethan didn't. He set his drink down and quietly excused himself from the table. No one stopped him. A beat later, Claire slipped out too. Two shadows slinking down a hallway, stunned and shattered. I took another sip of wine, breathing in the moment, letting it settle in my bones. This wasn't anger. This wasn't revenge. This was justice. Served at 7 p.m., medium rare, with Pinot Noir. After they left the room, the energy slowly returned. Polite laughter, small talk, compliments on the roast. But I stayed still, watching the hallway they'd disappeared into. I wondered if they were arguing, whispering, blaming each other. Ethan probably denying everything, Claire spiraling, both of them realizing, too late, that they'd been outplayed by the one they underestimated most. I didn't need to hear it to know. That kind of panic has a presence, even behind closed doors. Julian leaned into me, kissed my cheek, and whispered, "You okay?" My heart pulled a little at that. He was so genuine, so untouched by all the mess beneath the surface. I nodded, resting my head lightly on his shoulder. "Never better," I said. And in that moment, it wasn't even a lie. Because for the first time in a long time, I felt in control. Not just surviving, not just pretending, actually steering the wheel. And the look on Ethan's face, worth every second. When dinner ended, we said our goodbyes, exchanged hugs, posed for a photo his mother insisted on taking. I smiled like a woman in love. I held Julian's hand like I meant it. And maybe, somewhere deep down, I did. But as we drove home, his fingers laced through mine. One thought echoed louder than the rest. This wasn't the end. Not yet. The whispers were just beginning. And tomorrow, the storm would spread. By the next morning, it had already begun. The calls. The whispers. The "did you hear?" and the "you're not going to believe this." I didn't even have to say a word. That dinner had done all the talking. Words spread like perfume on silk. Slow, subtle, impossible to ignore. And just like that, Claire wasn't invited to brunches anymore. Her comments on family group chats went unanswered. People didn't pick sides out loud, but you could feel it. Her name became a pause in the conversation. A stain no one wanted to touch. Ethan tried to reach me 2 days later. A text, just one line. "Can we talk?" I didn't answer, not because I didn't have anything to say, but because silence was louder. He followed up with a voicemail. His voice cracked halfway through. He said he missed me, said he didn't know why he did what he did, said he was confused. I listened to the whole thing, standing in the kitchen with a cup of tea, letting his voice echo through the tiles and stainless steel. Then I deleted it. I didn't need closure. I needed distance. Julian, on the other hand, was glowing, planning engagement photos, asking about venues, telling his friends how lucky he felt. And here's the strange part. I wasn't faking my smile as much anymore. He had a way of making everything lighter, easier, like I could actually have a different ending than the one I'd been dragging behind me. But even as we talked about flowers and playlists, I kept the truth tucked quietly in the back of my mind. This may have started with revenge, but what came next? That was entirely up to me. Claire didn't reach out. Not once. Not even to defend herself. I half expected some dramatic message, an apology, a confession, maybe even denial. But nothing came. Just silence. That told me everything I needed to know. She wasn't sorry. She was caught. And now that her mask had slipped, she had no idea how to face me without the fake sweetness she used to hide behind. I imagined her pacing around her apartment, reliving every message she ever sent Ethan, wondering who else had seen the photo. That kind of fear sticks. Ethan, though? He kept trying. A few more texts. A long email I didn't finish reading. He even showed up once, outside my building. He didn't come in, just stood there, staring up at my window like a ghost from another life. I watched him from behind the curtain, heart steady, eyes dry. The man I once loved was now a stranger, and I didn't owe that stranger a damn thing. Let him stand in the cold. Let him wonder how everything slipped through his fingers. Julian knew none of this. He was busy making guest lists, calling caterers, asking me if I liked ivory or blush for table linens. Part of me felt guilty. But the other part? The part that had been betrayed, humiliated, replaced? That part felt powerful. I wasn't pretending anymore. I was choosing. Every day, choosing how far this would go. Choosing what kind of ending this story would have. Because the truth is, I wasn't just healing, I was evolving. And I wasn't finished yet. A few weeks later, I stood in front of my mirror again. The same one where I'd first stared at my broken reflection and whispered, "No more crying." Only this time, the woman looking back at me was different, stronger, sharper. She didn't need permission to take up space. She didn't need anyone to choose her. I slipped the engagement ring onto my finger, slowly, like sealing a promise. Not just to Julian, but to myself. A promise that I'd never be that woman again. The one who begged for honesty from people who gave her lies. There was no ceremony, no fireworks, just a small moment. Me, alone in my apartment, lit by soft morning light, watching the ring catch it like a quiet blaze. It was never about the jewelry. It was about the symbolism, the circle, the claim, the transformation. Julian loved me. Maybe I loved him too. Or maybe I was still learning how to love from a place that wasn't pain. I didn't know what came next. And honestly, that felt freeing.